I never imagined a quiet evening at home could shift the way I saw my family, or myself. It started with an ache in my shoulders that refused to fade, a physical reminder of weeks spent juggling work, errands, and obligations that felt heavier than I wanted to admit. I sank onto the couch, massaging the tension away with my own hands, when Aaron appeared in the doorway. My stepnephew, 24, strikingly composed, and somehow always aware of the subtle dynamics in the room, leaned casually against the frame, a faint smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. "You look tense," he said, and there was a lilt in his voice, playful yet perceptive, that made me pause. I hadn't expected him home from his trip until tomorrow, and the surprise of seeing him stirred an odd combination of comfort and unease. "I'm fine," I replied automatically, though my voice lacked conviction. Aaron raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced, and took a step closer. The air between us felt different somehow, charged, though I couldn't yet identify why. "I could help," he offered, almost casually. "With a massage. Learned a few new techniques while I was away. Could work wonders." The suggestion made my heart skip, a reflexive reaction I didn't understand. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, to treat it as a harmless joke. Another part, an unexpected, uneasy part, considered the relief his hands might bring. I guess that could work," I said finally, trying to sound nonchalant. The moment I agreed, I felt a shiver of anticipation, an awareness of how fragile the boundary between us could feel in silence. As Aaron guided me to sit, I noticed the little details I had always brushed past, the sharpness of his gaze, the ease with which he carried himself, the faint scent of the cologne he'd brought back from his travels. They were familiar, yet new in ways that made my chest tighten unexpectedly. He began slowly, pressing his hands into the knots in my shoulders, a rhythm both steady and intimate. I closed my eyes, attempting to focus solely on the sensation, but my thoughts betrayed me. There was an undeniable tension, something neither of us had named, that pulsed quietly beneath the surface, and I sensed that tonight would not remain ordinary. The room held its breath with us. Caught between normalcy and something far more complicated, I realized, with a mix of fear and curiosity, that this simple, seemingly innocent offer might unravel everything I thought I understood about family, desire, and the fragile rules we live by. And in that moment, I knew. Nothing about this evening would remain the same. I had always thought of Aaron as merely my stepnephew, the son of my husband's previous marriage, a figure whose presence I respected but rarely understood. Yet, over the years, subtle shifts had occurred, unnoticed until moments like this one. There was a confidence in the way he moved, a quiet awareness in his eyes, as if he could see more than I intended to reveal. It unsettled me, though I wasn't sure why. The evening unfolded slowly. Rain pattered against the windows, soft and insistent, filling the house with a private rhythm that made everything feel suspended outside time. The dim light of the living room cast gentle shadows, highlighting the contours of his face and the way his hands moved with careful precision. I couldn't deny the comfort I felt as tension began to release from my shoulders, but it was accompanied by something unfamiliar, an acute awareness of his proximity. "You've been working too hard," he said softly, his voice measured yet warm, as if he had stepped into the unspoken corners of my mind. "I suppose I have," I admitted, letting the words escape more freely than I intended. There was a vulnerability in my tone, an opening I hadn't realized I was offering. Aaron's hands didn't falter. He applied pressure here, eased tension there, and all the while, I noticed the subtle nuances. How his thumbs lingered longer than necessary, how his forearms brushed gently against mine. I told myself it was professional, merely skillful technique, yet the deeper I relaxed, the more I recognized the thrum of something else, something undeniably magnetic between us. I shifted slightly, aware of my own heartbeat. This wasn't the first time I had felt a peculiar awareness in his presence, but tonight it was sharper, undeniable. Each movement, each glance carried weight, and I realized the boundary between stepfamily familiarity and something far more dangerous had thinned without our conscious consent. "I didn't expect this," I murmured, almost to myself, my voice betraying the flutter of emotions I struggled to contain. Aaron paused briefly, his gaze meeting mine with a quiet intensity. There was no judgment, only a mirrored curiosity that startled me. It was as if, in that instant, we acknowledged the tension without speaking it aloud. A delicate, fragile acknowledgement that made the room feel both intimate and perilous. I drew in a breath, aware of the growing complexity of my feelings. What began as a simple gesture, a massage, had transformed into a charged encounter where unspoken desires and forbidden curiosity danced silently between us. The comfort of his touch was entwined with a caution I couldn't ignore, a whisper of danger beneath the warmth. By the time the massage ended, I was left with a trembling awareness that nothing about our relationship would remain as simple as it had been. The evening had shifted something fundamental, leaving me both unsettled and acutely alive to the possibilities that lingered, unspoken in the spaces between us. And in that charged silence, I understood. The story had only just begun. After that evening, the memory of Aaron's hands on my shoulders lingered longer than it should have, seeping into my thoughts at unexpected moments. I found myself replaying the way he had paused, the intensity in his gaze, the subtle brush of skin that had sent an unfamiliar shiver through me. I tried to dismiss it as fleeting, a product of fatigue and imagination, but the tension between us had shifted, and I could feel it in every interaction. Days passed, and the simplest exchanges became charged. His casual smiles, a lingering glance as he passed by, even the way he spoke with careful attention to my words. All of it pulled at something I wasn't prepared to name. I was aware, painfully aware of the boundary I was skirting, and yet, the closer I tried to maintain distance, the more magnetic his presence became. One evening, we found ourselves alone again in the living room. David had left early for a late meeting, leaving only the soft hum of the heater and the muted rhythm of traffic outside. Aaron leaned against the doorway, the faint scent of his cologne familiar and disarming. "You've been quiet," he remarked, his tone casual but probing. "I've just had a lot on my mind," I replied, attempting a lightness that felt false. He moved closer, settling onto the arm of the couch beside me. "Sometimes," he said softly, "it helps to let someone in, even if just a little." His words were innocent enough on the surface, but the weight beneath them was unmistakable. I felt my pulse quicken, awareness sharpening with a mix of anticipation and fear. We spoke then, but our conversation was a delicate dance around unspoken truths. Each laugh, each sigh carried layers of meaning. My thoughts betrayed me constantly. Why did his touch linger in my memory? Why did I find myself imagining more than I should? I felt guilty for even entertaining the possibility, yet I couldn't deny the thrill that flickered in my chest when he leaned just slightly closer. At one point, his hand brushed mine, an accidental fleeting contact that lingered a fraction too long. I caught my breath, heart hammering, acutely conscious of the dangerous line we were treading. He looked at me then, eyes searching, as if silently questioning the same unspoken desires. The tension became almost unbearable, a taut thread stretched between caution and temptation. I realized with startling clarity that what had begun as a simple massage was evolving into something far more complex, an emotional storm neither of us was equipped to navigate. By the time the evening ended, we were both acutely aware that the boundary between familial familiarity and forbidden desire had been tested, weakened, and perhaps even broken. The unspoken question hung in the air. What happens next, when curiosity and longing collide in ways we cannot easily contain? And in that charged silence, I understood the truth. The comfort we had shared was no longer innocent. It was a doorway, and we had both stepped through. By morning, the weight of the night pressed on me like a physical force. Liam sat quietly at the kitchen table, his small fingers tracing the rim of his mug, eyes distant, yet alert. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, illuminating the crumbs of toast that went largely untouched. I could feel his tension, the unspoken question in his gaze. What happens now? I knew the confrontation with Mark was unavoidable. Every fiber of my being screamed for clarity, for answers. for the truth that had been creeping into our lives like a shadow. My heart pounded as I called him into the kitchen, the air thick with anticipation. He appeared, his usual confident posture diminished by the unease flickering across his face. "Anna, what's going on?" he asked, voice measured but slightly tense. I inhaled, steadying myself. "Mark, Liam saw you last night," I said slowly, letting the words sink. "He saw you with someone else." The silence that followed was deafening. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes, a crack in the armor of composure he always wore. "Anna, He started, but I cut him off, the dam of patience breaking. "Don't," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Don't try to explain it away. I trusted you. Liam trusted you. And now everything is fractured." My chest ached with anger and sorrow, the betrayal sharper than I could have imagined. Mark's lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. His usual eloquence failed him. Liam's small presence at my side was grounding. He looked at Mark with a mix of confusion and quiet hurt, and I felt a pang of guilt for what he had been forced to witness. "It's true, isn't it?" I asked, the words barely above a whisper. "All of it?" Mark swallowed, his eyes darting between us. Finally, he admitted it. Months of lies, whispered excuses, and stolen moments I hadn't suspected. The truth hit me with a force I could not dodge. I felt the world tilt, a dizzying sense of disbelief mingled with sorrow, anger, and betrayal. This was more than a mistake. It was a fracture in the life we had built, a wound that cut deep into the core of our family. Yet amidst the storm of emotions, I felt Liam's tiny hand in mine. His trust, unbroken even after witnessing the betrayal, anchored me. He had been brave enough to step forward, to reveal the secret I might never have discovered on my own. In that moment, the love I felt for him surged with clarity. Protecting him, comforting him, and navigating the aftermath was now my paramount duty. I took a deep breath and spoke to both of them, my voice firmer than I expected. "We will face this. Together we will figure out what comes next, but nothing, no secret, no betrayal, changes the fact that Liam's safety, his trust, and our bond are what matter most." Mark nodded silently, the weight of guilt evident in his posture. Liam leaned into me, and I held him close, feeling the fragility of our family, yet the resilience that still pulsed beneath the surface. The revelation was harsh, piercing, and irrevocable, but in facing it head-on, I understood something crucial. Some truths, though painful, are necessary to reclaim what matters most. The days that followed were a strange mixture of quiet and tension. Mark had moved out temporarily, the house feeling emptier without him, yet somehow lighter in a way I hadn't expected. Liam and I settled into a new rhythm, fragile but comforting. Mornings were spent over cereal and whispered conversations, afternoons absorbed in Lego battles or story time, and evenings wrapped in blankets with shadows flickering against the walls. His laughter returned slowly, tentative at first, but gradually reclaiming its place in our home. I found myself reflecting on the fragility of trust, how easily it can fracture, how deceptively seamless life can appear on the surface while carrying hidden fissures beneath. I thought about Mark, his absence, his betrayal, and the complexity of forgiveness. I did not yet know if our marriage would survive, or if the wounds could ever fully heal. But I did know one thing with absolute certainty. Liam's courage had reminded me what truly mattered. One evening, I tucked him into bed, the room warm with the soft glow of the nightlight. "Mom," he whispered, his voice small but steady, "will everything be okay?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "I don't know exactly what the future holds," I admitted, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "But I promise this. We will face it together. No matter what." He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips, and I realized that our bond had grown stronger through the ordeal. His trust had been tested, yet he remained resilient, and in that resilience I found hope. There was a lesson in courage and honesty here, not just for him, but for me too. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes the people we love make choices that hurt us. But the capacity to navigate those challenges, to hold on to the connections that matter most, is what shapes us. I also understood the importance of reflection, of acknowledging the pain without letting it define us. Each night, as I lay awake, I thought about the delicate balance of love, trust, and forgiveness. I thought about how easily life can shift in a single moment, how a small act of honesty, like Liam's brave confession, can illuminate truths we might otherwise never face. The revelation of betrayal had been devastating, yes, but it had also opened a path to clarity, to understanding, and to the possibility of rebuilding. In time, the house regained a sense of calm, though the shadow of the past lingered in quiet corners. I learned to cherish the small victories. Liam's laughter after school, the way he rested his head on my shoulder, the ordinary routines that now carried extraordinary meaning. The experience had left us changed, yes, but not defeated, and, as I held him close, whispering promises into the soft darkness, I realized a simple, unwavering truth. Life will test us. Secrets will surface, and hearts may be broken. But the courage to face the truth, the strength to protect those we love, and the resilience to rebuild are what ultimately define us. That night, Liam's honesty had not only exposed a painful reality, it had also revealed the depth of our love and the enduring power of trust between a mother and her child.